Thank you for being here. I know it's already like time in which we start thinking about things like drinks and pizza and all those things. So I appreciate that. I hope this is illustrative for you. In fact, I know that this is honestly after lunch, your stomachs are full. So we'll try to do some form of live coding. So for those of you who want to join me, I have a link prepared and we'll code together so that we don't get really bored. So we're here to speak about Google Pay. As it was already mentioned, I'm Jose. I want to mention that again because I would like to make myself available to you. It might be that some of the questions that you have, we may address them right now. Some others, you can go visit us at the booth that we have here. But if any of those things don't work for you, I would like to share my contact details with you as well so that you can reach out to me for anything any question, any topic that you have related to Google Pay. After all, this is all that I do, and this is actually a really important part of my job, to really connect with you and really solve those problems that you may have on Google Pay concretely. But I would also really like to hear about all the issues that you may have, if that's the case. So let's talk about the problem. Why are we speaking about Google Pay, and why is that something that you might be interested on hearing about? We have in e-commerce, when you're like basically selling something, or you have customers who are paying in your site, we have a big problem today, and that is that we have a huge amount of percentage of dropout. What does that mean? It means that when you're purchasing an item on a site, and you're ready to pay, you're presented with a form, right? And typically, well, you start filling in details. And at some point, some sites won't even give you error messages, right? You see that something actually is wrong, but you don't realize until you hit the button, right? After filling those 20 fields, you realize that you typed the address wrong to start with, for example. Not only that, but some sites won't allow you to even navigate back, right? So if you then figured out that you typed something wrong in the past, you will not be able to go back. You'll have to start over. Those forms account for a number of inefficiencies. But amongst them, there's an average of 100 taps when you're filling them from a mobile device. Think about the amount of effort that is involved in this case. And this is obviously creating a really bad experience that is making your users abandoning your site, right? So at some point, users might be fed up and may say, OK, I don't want to do it anymore. I want this item that you're selling, but I've tried my best. I cannot pay. I'm not able to give you my money, and therefore I'm going to do something else. In fact, this is a really important number, which accounts for almost 70% of cart abandonments. Those are due to a really complex checkout process in which you have a form with many fields. Maybe some of those fields are long to type. So it's kind of a bit of a hassle to do that. Some of the fields you may not remember. You may not know all your addresses. You may not know all your credit cards. And you may have to get your wallet to get the card number. I'm sure this has happened to you a number of times. The one that I hate the most is when I actually do that, when I get up, get my wallet, and then when I go back, I realize that the session has expired, so I have to start all over, right? So this is really discouraging. So at Google, we wanted to address this problem. And Google Pay is a combination of products and features, some of them which existed already before, some others that we are adding now. So you may have heard, for example, about Google Wallet, Android Pay, even peer-to-peer send, to be able to send funds to other people with Google accounts. Our goal is to unify all those under the umbrella of Google Pay to be able to satisfy this and other problems. So why is that interesting? It is interesting because we think that we have a good combination, a good number of users already. The forms of payment which are saved in your Google accounts are those that you have used in the past, in the last 10 years, 15 years, to pay in products like YouTube or the Google Play Store, or even using any regular form on the internet by using Chrome autofill, for example. Those payment methods are there saved for you, so you can use them in the future for not only Google Pay sites, but also for any merchant that integrates with Google Pay. And this is what we are going to do today. We're going to concentrate. There are different verticals. So you're able to, probably you have heard of Google Pay as that mechanism that allows you to pay in stores with your mobile phone, right? So you can come with your phone, you can reach a contactless terminal, and you can pay with that, right? Well, this is just one side of Google Pay. There's more to that. Today, in fact, we're going to concentrate on the online APIs. This is available, contrary to the in-store version. this is available worldwide for all countries, for all your cards, right? So you can integrate it right away today, and then you'll be able to allow your customers to pay with their forms of payment, which are already saved in their Google accounts everywhere. So you can integrate that on Android and on the web. We're going to start with the demo on the web. If you're interested on Android, come talk to us afterwards. It's also really simple to implement. Now, once again, why is that interesting? We have hundreds of millions of forms of payment that you save in your accounts already, as we were saying. Think about those products that you see in there. Some of them, majority of them, have more than 1 billion active users, right? Those users have been saving his and her payment methods in there. Now those are available through Google Pay. The one thing that I like the most about the online API is that it works across the entire web. And when we say that, we mean that it works across platforms, like you can use it in your desktop, you can use it in your Android device, in your iOS device as well. It also works across browsers. You can use it in Safari, you can use it in Chrome, you can use it in Uzi browser, you can use it in Opera, you can use it in Firefox, Microsoft Edge, all the major browsers, once you integrate the library. It also speaks different languages. We mentioned that this library is available to be used across the entire world. We'll also help you with things like localization, right? So one of the things that we include in this library is the rendering of the button that has to satisfy some branding guidelines. If you use our APIs to render the button, not only will we make sure that your button looks the way it needs to look, but we'll also translate it for you based on whenever the user is accessing your website from, right? And even better than this, because we have talked about the situation today, right? About the past, about why things don't work, why checkout forms are so hard to complete. But think about the future now. Think about all these new technologies and services that are just coming, are inundating our workplaces, our homes, our offices, like devices like Google Home, for example. Any voice-powered device that today you can see in 2-3 devices, but tomorrow, think about it, it will be in your cars, it will be in your homes, it will be in your workplaces. And now try to imagine yourself filling out a form to pay for a good using your voice, right? All these like 40, 30 fields that you have to fill in. Imagine like dictating your card numbers to the form and making mistakes. That will be something, a process that will be like really annoying. It'll probably take you about half an hour to get it right. But once we are able to pay with technologies like Google Pay, in which your customers can finish a checkout process with 2 taps or with 2 actions, then we can easily translate that into something like a voice-powered device. We just need to say, I want to pay with Google Pay. Select your card, and off you go, right? So this is something that I like always to mention, because I think it prepares you for the future. Those things are going to be a fact soon, right? And by that time, you want to be able to benefit from those. So there's a number of customers who are already benefiting, who have integrated Google Pay already. Customers like Macy's, or Uber, or Airbnb. And what I like about them is that they are seeing different improvements on different areas. It's not that they're simply increasing the number of transactions. They are seeing improvements in their metrics across the board. So I wanted to show you Airbnb, which is one of the first adopters of Google Pay. For Airbnb, not only they saw a massive adoption of payments that came through Google Pay once they integrated it. That speaks for the fact that there was already a number of payment methods saved in users' Google's account. You can see how simple it is, right? Once you have selected a place that you want to stay on, you have selected the dates, then you will have an option to pay with Google Pay, that button that you see over there. You will see a payment sheet showing all the available payment methods in your account. You select the payment method, and off you go, right? It's, once again, best case scenario, 2 taps. Worst case scenario, average 3, 4, 5 taps, which is still pretty quick. So just to mention a couple. Hotel Tonight, after integrating Google Pay, saw an increase of transactions of 65% compared to the regular form that they had before. 65% is a pretty decent number, right? Now translate that into yearly revenues, right? If you are having 1 million revenue and then you see a 65 increase, then you're just going to have a number of hundreds of thousands of currency transactions coming into your system, right? In this case, that will be 1.65 millions for the next year. And I always like to mention the case of B&H because it saw an improvement or something that is not necessarily intuitive. That is, now when you're bringing users into your system or into your site where you're selling something, where you're having users paying for some good, digital or physical, it can be that they don't have an account. So to all these fields that you have to already fill in the payment form, you have to add the creation account fields, which just makes the whole process, you're kind of duplicating or triplicating the effort. What happens with users with Google Pay accounts or with Google accounts? Chances are they are already logged in. Either they are using Chrome, they are signed in Chrome, or they are using some other Google product, YouTube or Gmail or Google Play, right? So even if a user is a new user to this site, B&H, they can still already sign in, pay with Google Pay, and not only they will skip all those sign-in steps, but also they will be able to pay quickly. So what concretely B&H saw is that they saw a 68% more likelihood of new users paying or finishing a transaction on their site. Not only that, but also those users that came anew and finished a transaction were more likely to create an account. So they were growing their user base as well, right, with the impact that this has. And a topic that typically doesn't get talked about enough is security, especially about payments. It shocks me that we have end-to-end encryption in messaging apps that we use every day. So our messages about memes and emojis and things which sometimes are not important are completely secure. No one can see them. But sometimes our payments are not. There are some forms of payment today which are not necessarily secure, or at least there's some way to breach into those. And I'm sure you have heard about situations in which payment information have been leaked or exposed in different sites, right? This is something that is really important and is really close to Google's heart. Because as you know, we have been always trying to push and optimize for security, not only by easing the path into having websites using TLS or secure connections, but also across the board inside of all of our Google products. And that also applies in Google Pay as well. So when you're actually transacting online using Google Pay, let's say I'm coming to buy on a specific site. I will buy a T-shirt. I will select a form of payment, my Visa card, for example, to pay for that T-shirt. At that point, what's happening is that the information from my card will go from Google secure servers into the payment gateway. But the best thing of that is that this information will be end-to-end encrypted from Google servers to the payment service. How does that work? This is encrypted with the key that only the processor has. So that is, no matter who or how that gets intercepted in the way, no one will be able to make sense out of that. It will be a random blob of characters and numbers, right? So only the processor will be able to get that information back. That is, there is not a physical way or a mathematical way to get that information. That is, you are gaining on security. Now, let's concentrate on what we want to do today. What I wanted to do is show you how easy it is to integrate, how easy it is to get the Google API on the web and integrate that. So I wanted to run through the 3 main steps, and then I want to code it here myself. In fact, I'll have a link available to you if you have laptops. If you feel like coding right now, and I very much hope that's the case, then you can do it alongside with me. Because it really takes 15 minutes, probably, if we do it quickly. So to pay with Google Pay, you need a payment gateway or a processor. We are not processing the payment. We're simply helping your users connect their already saved form of payments with your site, right? But you still need a payment gateway, something like Stripe, Adyen, Braintree, WorldPay, CyberSource, whatever you use. You can see there a number of payment providers already supported, more are coming as we speak as well. So it really comes down to 4 main steps. You have to load a library, which is what you do every single time you're adding a dependency to your code. You have to determine whether the user is ready to pay. We don't want to show the Google Pay button if the user in question is not able to pay with Google Pay. If we determine that this is the case, we will show the payment button. And finally, we'll request showing all those forms of payment saved under that user account. That is, for my account, that will be which credit cards or other forms of payment do I have saved. That's all. So I'll go really quickly through this, because then the important part is that I want to do it as we speak. I want to do it together with you, live. We will implement it on a sample site. So I will run briefly through that. So first of all, we load the library using the script tag on HTML on the web. Once that's loaded, I will instantiate the Google Pay client. This will allow me to do all these operations, right? Now, I'm going to define these, let's say, the allowed forms of payment that I accept on my site. It might be that I only accept MasterCard, or only Visa, or only American Express. And I will also be able to choose which type of authorization method am I going to allow in my site. Will I accept tokenized cards or only regular cards? There's the option as well to ask for billing address information or phone number. That's really up to you. What we always recommend is to request as less information as possible, because always you know that when we ask for more information, it's more likely that users are less likely to actually buy on our site. So if you need to do it, you can do it. But if you can go only with, let's say, the payment method, that's probably a better way to go if you want to maximize your conversions. Now, first thing, let's determine whether the user can pay with Google Pay. So we are calling the isReadyToPay API, passing the configuration that we just defined before. That will give us a simple response, yes or no. Can the user pay with Google Pay or not? If the user cannot pay with Google Pay, well, don't render the button. Maybe we are operating on a device that has a Google account that has no form of payment. Or maybe we are in a not unsupported browser, right? So don't show the Google button. You are done. If there's support for Google Pay, if the user can pay with the Google Pay, then go to the next step and go ahead and create the button. As we mentioned before, you can create the button yourself. But it's easier if you use our API. So if you just hit Create Button, that will return you an HTML object directly with the respecting the branding guidelines which are defined under Google Pay. Also, as we mentioned before, you will have the chance to receive a translated asset or a localized asset, right? So that will be, if you are, for example, in Spain, that will be translated to Spanish. Pay with Google Pay in Spanish. Finally, once the user clicks the button, all we need to add is the information about our transaction. How much does it cost, whatever we are buying, whatever we are paying for, which currency is that in, and whether the price is final or not. Sometimes we don't know the final price, right? Because we have to calculate the final price based on the type of card that the user selects, or based on the shipping option that the user takes, right? So you can define that actually in the API. And that's really all. With that information, you will call load payment data. That will open the payment sheet to the user, both on Android or the web. The user will select a payment method, and that will return you. That will give you a response that you can see in there. Once the promise is resolved under the function payment data, that will hold the actual object containing the encrypted information selected by the user. And that's something that you have to send to your payment gateway. With that, you're good to go. You're done. Two really important things to remember when you implement this is the first one, try to call the load payment data API. So when you are loading the payment sheet for the user to select the card, for example, do this in a synchronous way and as a response of a user action, right? So call this thing when the user is clicking a button or when the user is interacting with the keyboard, for example. Why is that? Because we don't want, if we call this in the background or not as a response of a user action, it might be that this gets blocked by pop-up blockers, right? One of our versions of the API is still loading a pop-up for the user to select the form of payment preferred, right? If you do this in an asynchronous way, it might be that the pop-up gets blocked. So that's something to remember. The other one, remember when we were loading the library in the script at the very beginning? Now, you can see that we have an async in here, right? What this is doing, as most of you know, this is allowing the document, the HTML, the site, to load first, and keep the payments library loading in the background, right? What happens if we don't have this async tag? It means that the HTML site won't render until both libraries are loaded. We don't want to hold up showing HTML elements or our website to our users, right? So what we do is we load this asynchronously, so that once this is done, our callback will be called, in this case on Google Pay loaded. Great, so here is the actual link. This is taking you to an online IDE which has already a pre-baked website without Google Pay, right? So it just has the foundations. So if you're willing to do some live coding with me, I'll give you 3 seconds to take out your laptops and go to that URL, and then we'll actually code it together. This will create a copy of the project. So if you're typing in here, you won't mess my actual project. If you want to troll me, that's not going to be possible this time. But we'll be able to build this together. So what I'm going to do is, if you have questions already for anything that I have mentioned, while others take their laptops up and go for the link. So if you have questions, let's address them now. Let's stop for a second. Let's cover some questions and give the others time to open the browser. So do we have questions? That's either a very good sign or a bad sign. That no one really, either you're like too tired. There you go, one question.
What's the main difference between GPay and in-app billing?
In-app billing? In-app billing as in in-app payments? Yeah, so there's a big difference in that when you're doing in-app payments, you're trying to purchase a specific functionality of an application, right? You're buying coins, you're buying credits, you're unlocking premium features. This, when you use Google Pay, you're paying for goods, digital or physical, for services, for example. So a typical in-app payment would be, I want to buy coins. A typical Google Pay payment will be, I'm buying a T-shirt on a shop, or I'm buying credits for a website, or I'm subscribing to, let's say, YouTube Premium, for example. Right? It can be physical or digital, but this is for items which are external of the actual functionality of the application. Right? Does that make sense? OK. Other questions? Yeah.
You were speaking about there is like API and API.
Yeah, so there's an Android API covering the web right now because we can set up an online IDE much faster. We don't have to deal with Android Studio and all that. But the API looks really, really similar. So everything that I have said really applies to Android as well. And the implementation time is around about the same time. Okay. All right, then let's go ahead and let's get cracking. Oh, that's the wrong one. So I'm going to just hit that link the same way as you probably have done yourself. If I can see my mouse and I don't put my computer to sleep. There you go. Can you see the cursor? I cannot see myself. It's actually there, but it's not working. Oh, here it is. There you go. Just lazy. All right. So we have this environment in here. We have this like online ID that I was speaking about. So what we have is a really basic website. So if you go ahead and go show live, you will be able to see what are we trying to target. So this is a typical e-commerce shop. In this case, we are selling T-shirts about Google products, right? Where we have a selection for the size, we have a quantity, and then we have the typical button to pay. And this button will take us to a form that we are used to probably. We will be able to enter information there about the address, the user, the name, the credit card, and so on and so forth. But this is annoying. We have seen how this is actually making our users less likely to transact successfully with us. So we want to improve that. So let's go ahead and write some code. So the first file we'll get to is the index.js. There are some parts which are being done already. So if you look at the index.html, we already have the script tag in here. We are loading the library already. You can see that in here. We're loading the GPay library, and once this is done, we want to call on Google Pay Loaded. So this is all under index.js. Let's look for on Google Pay Loaded. There you go. So the first thing, if you remember, that we'll do is instantiate the client. So we'll say Google Pay client, and then we're going to create a new instance of Google Pay Payments API, and I cannot see with this funny cat. Payments client. I'm going to say we're going to operate in the test environment for now. Environment test. I hope you're not mean, and if you see an error or a typo, you let me know before I hit the button and I see the crash and I'm all embarrassed in front of you. So I have the payments client. So the first thing I'm going to do is what? What is the first thing that we need to do? Any ideas? What about knowing if the user can pay with Google Pay? Maybe? OK, let's call this API, right? So we're going to use the payments client. I don't have autocomplete. How bad is that? Is ready to pay, so which means that I need to know it by heart, right? Perfect. So to is ready to pay, we're going to pass some configuration here. What configuration? Well, basically something that tells us about whether our user is ready to pay with Google Pay. So that's going to be this pay configuration. You see, this is something really basic. We're just determining the API version in here and some allowed payment method options in my e-commerce site or in my website. So I'm going to pass that to is ready to pay. Then we're going to try to resolve the promise. If that happens successfully, I'm going to catch it right in here. For now, we're going to, if the result is true, we're going to go ahead and create the button. Create and add button.
Just watch out that you got it wrong. It's ready to pay.
OK. I appreciate that. Is ready pay. That wouldn't work. OK, so first embarrassment, I'm safe from that. That's awesome. Now, let's keep going. Actually, I cannot see the full screen. So this is closing the first one. We're catching the error. Error. That was going to log it. Right? That's it. Good. OK. Now, this is updating my site directly. So I should be able to go to the website that I had before and see if something happened. Going to refresh. Let's inspect. I probably have an error in here. Let's find that out. On Google Pay load is not defined. Fantastic. Let's see. On Google Pay loaded, it is defined. Are you able to pinpoint something else? What's that? Yeah, I would need a block for that. So for now, we're going to take that out just to make sure this is not the reason. There you go. Perfect. So no errors. That means that I got a successful response because I have no error in there. Let's make this a bit bigger. Great. So now let's call create button. We need to have a method in here. Ready. So remember, here you can either create your own button or call the create button API, to which we can pass some configuration. We can define whether we want the black or the white button, or we want the long or the short version. What we have to add for sure is the on-click event, right? So what happens when we click that button? What we're going to do is we're going to call the next function that we have ready already. We're going to close this, and then we're going to add that to the DOM. We have already a div element prepared for rendering our Google Pay button. So in fact, it's going to be easier if I uncomment this line. Right? Good, good. So if everything went well, I should be able to see a Google Pay button in my site. And I'm not seeing. This is why is that? Let's refresh. OK. Any clue? Have you seen anything that I haven't seen yet? What's that? Oh, there you go. This is, I'm just calling that, but I'm not persisting it anywhere, right? So that makes more sense to me. Refresh again. And where? Is it fine? OK, good. Let's make sure we're coming in here. Oh. Come on, this is easy, eh? You should be able to pinpoint those parentheses in there. OK. That should be it. There you go. So we have now a pay with Google Pay or buy with Google Pay button. You see, it was pretty easy. I checked whether I was able to pay. And once I determined that that was the case, then I added the button. Right? In this case, it is in black, and it's the long version that is the default. and we're writing that in English. Good, so now what happens when I click on the button? Well, we're just doing the final transaction. We want to let Google Pay know what is the transaction that we're running so that the user can see and select the payment methods available for that. So for that, this is all configuration. So I prepared it already in here. You can see that the amount is $123. It's US dollars. And this is final amount, right? So there's nothing that we need to change in there. Great. The last thing that we need to do is pass that to the load payment data API, right? Before that, we're going to copy the object that we had already. What's that? OK, type OK. You know, it's much easier to do this when you're not up here. Actually, I didn't make any mistake in my last rehearsal. Let's get the base configuration that we had before. So that, because we need all the other objects that we had already pre-created, and to that, we're adding this, the transaction info with the price and currency, and the merchant info.
You have a typo here, SI.
Which one, at the end?
There is S-sync.
122.
122, that helps me. 22. Awesome. You're the best crowd that I had so far. I had people not telling me anything ever. Good, so let's go get the client again. And we're going to call load payment data. We're going to pass in the payment data request that we just created. Let's capture the outcome. Results. We're going to log it, so you see what do we get back from Google Pay. Or error. And then we're going to error it. Good. All right, let's see what happened. What am I missing? Parentheses? There you go. It's also that I'm looking at that screen and it's so far away. It's so tiny. But it's working out. OK, so if we did everything right, that should be able to load the payment sheet. This is typically a pop-up window. But now it's a bit bigger because we are running in full screen. Typically, there will be a small window. So you can see in here that I have my Google account. I can choose a different one. I have different payment methods available here. Since in this case, I am accepting in my business Visa and MasterCard, I'm showing all my cards, which are, in my case, Visa and MasterCard, right? So I can see them all. And I'm also requesting for a billing address. So that's something that is you can see in here too, being requested. You can see in the this little letter saying your billing details will also be shared with the merchant. That means that I have already one billing address associated to that card, and that's going to be sent too. So what happens? I'm going to say this is fine for me. I'm going to pay. You see it's a couple of taps, and I get the response right in there. And what's really important about this response is we'll get some information about the actual transaction with the API. But what's really important is the token. So you go to tokenization data. That token in here, this is a fake token, obviously. It's just like a string. But when we are implementing in production with a specific payment gateway, we'll get the encrypted blob with the key that is the processor is using. So once we send that to our processor, they will be able, and only then, and only by themselves, they will be able to decrypt that, get the card, and then perform the actual transaction, right? So you see that we integrated it with 4 or 5 different steps. We associated a payment gateway. And for the user, it's just really a couple of clicks. Now, for the sake of experimentation, so that you see that this is actually working, we're going to remove support for MasterCard on our side. In fact, we already had that in here. It's going to remove support for MasterCard so that only my Visa cards are shown. So this is being filtered, obviously, for you. So this time around, only my Visa cards are going to be shown. As you can see, my MasterCards are gone. This really all it takes. I don't know if anyone did it with me. I don't see laptops. So I hope for the next time we're a bit braver. But still, thank you for the help on the actual implementation. You can see, it took me 10 minutes. It will take you, for the first time, 30, 40 minutes maybe to get it going. apply for a production account, update your details, and you're off. You're good to go. Right? All those hundreds of millions of credit cards that the user had will be available to your site for pay. And once again, the process on Android is very similar. Great. So to wrap it up, you saw the simplicity, you saw how to integrate it, you saw the benefit for your users. Remember all these numbers that we were sharing at the beginning, this drop-off percentages, this impact that this can have in your revenue. So what I'd like to do from here, as I mentioned before, is expose my contacts, reach out to me today, go visit our booth. If you have questions in further days, if you get to implement it in a month, drop me a note. I will be super willing and happy to help you. I'm leaving some resources in there. You have a short link to the API. There's also a code lab that we built under codelabs.developers.google.com. There's a short link there as well. It will guide you through everything that I said, but with text, so hopefully that's a bit more boring than what I'm mentioning here. But you'll have a chance to explore and play and integrate the Google Pay button in your site. And lastly, the final resource points to that online IDE that I just shared, that I used to write this live coding session. So yeah, so if you don't have already a website, you can access that and integrate Google Pay right in there. I hope that was of value. Give me feedback. Go visit us in the booth. We don't have too much swag left, but we have some stickers, and we are good people, so hopefully we make it enjoyable. Thank you for being with me all the way until this time. And if you have questions, let's address them now. I think we have some time for questions.
Yeah, so actually we don't have any questions on Slido because you were you drew everyone in to speak offline. So maybe I'm here with the mic. So any questions in the audience?
There? No? OK. There?
Hi again. Do you know which banks are supported here in Czech Republic?
Yes. So it's important to make it clear. For online, all cards, all banks are supported. If you want to pay in stores with your phone, for that, the bank in question will have to be integrated with Google Pay, right? So remember, for online, available worldwide. For what I showed here, available worldwide, all cards. For in-store payments, the list, if in fact I have it with me, is in Czech Republic. That's Revolut, obviously, because it's a virtual one. You have Moneta, you have mBank, you have J&T, and you have Komerční banka. If that makes sense.
Another question?
Is it also possible to integrate payments via mobile phone? I mean, to charge it to my tariff.
Oh, like carrier billing?
Yes,
Yeah,
carrier billing. Yes.
Yeah, that's something that is not necessarily part of Google Pay. That's something that if it's supported by your processor, you can still use it, right? You can still have that. You can still pay with your carrier. But I'd say this is out of the scope of GPay. GPay, what it tries to do is connect forms of payment that you already have with sites that may benefit from like using those payments to pay for something specific. So I would say carrier billing will not be encompassed under that, really.
And we have time for one last question. Yes, so Jose is going to be here with us for after party, right?
I hope, yeah.
You hope.
Let's see. We have to pack up stuff, so but we'll hope to do that. But we are right on the other side. There's like two GPay banners. Once again, we have stickers. The buttons are gone, unfortunately, but we'll be happy to receive you there.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Thank you very much, Jose. That was Jose Ugia.
Thank you very much.